Glad that you're joining me this morning. I apologize for missing yesterday, but I had the joy of helping my parents put a new layer of insulation in their in their roof, in their attic. And so I was blowing insulation, and I knew that if I did it early, it would be cooler. But that led from one thing to another, and before long, my day was gone. But I am here this morning and back in Psalm 78, and I have entitled this God, our rock and our redeemer. He is so patient. He is the one that we can go to no matter how emotional we are, no matter how distraught we are, no matter how filled with anxiety we are, no matter how worried we are, no matter how we jump to faulty conclusions. All of these things are so indicative of our weakness and our selfishness. But God is a rock. He never changes. He is God and he changes not. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He is faithful, and his mercy is faithful. And what an amazing thing that though we have feet of clay and though we fail God over and over again, he sees our heart. He knows our desires. He knows what we really desire of him and what we want to do on behalf of him and bringing glory to his name. And so he reminds us of this as he's talking with Israel. So Israel makes some really foolish decisions. They end up provoking God, as we saw the other day, and God's anger is kindled against them, and he has to correct them. He has to deal with their iniquity, their sinfulness. And verse number 34, when he slew them, then they sought him, and they returned and inquired early after God. It was in the midst of these consequences that they realized, I need God. Boy, it's sometimes the same for us. We think that we're, flying solo and we're independent and we're the captain of our ship and everything's, at our beck and command until things go wrong, till the consequences come, till life is really difficult. And then all of a sudden we tend to cry out. Well, Israel was no different. And it was in the midst of these consequences. Some people say, if you only repent when you're in consequences, then it's not legitimate. You're just sorry for the consequences, not sorry that you sinned. Well, I think that's a judgment call that's really hard for anybody to make a decision about. But it's not a hard decision for God to make. He sees our heart. He knows if we're sorry about the consequences or if we're sorry over the sin. He knows that. I think the Greek words metanoia, melamai, these are referencing that there is a different heart condition depending on how we respond. But there's many times that people have legitimately turned to God in times of deep distress or despair over consequences, that truly it helped them to see the waywardness of their sin. And they have come back to God and lived in victory. And so they returned, they inquire early of God, and they remembered that God was their rock and the high God, their redeemer. In other words, they begin to say, you know what? I am so undependable. I am so easily fooled and so prone to fail. But God never is. And though I can be up and down, God is steady. He's my rock and he's my redeemer. He's the only one who could have redeemed him. He's the only one who could rescue me. He's the only one who could forgive me. And so they run to him, seek him early. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. Boy, here they were sorry over their consequences, but not sorry over their sin. And God calls them out for it, for their heart was not right with him. Neither were they steadfast in his covenant. In other words, they were not repenting in order to embrace truth. They were not repenting in order to get back on the right path. They were repenting because they didn't like the uncomfortable consequences of their sin. But, and here's just a God thing, verse number 38. Don't ever miss this verse. But he, God, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned he his anger away, and he did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes away and cometh not again. And so here is the reminder, is God patiently deals with our ups and downs and our weaknesses. But sometimes he deals with the fact that he's got to give consequences. Sometimes he has to pull his hand of protection away and let sin bring its own consequences. But God remembers that we're but dust. When we get stiff-necked, when we get independent, when we get arrogant and proud, God knows that we are but dust. And he chooses not to destroy us. He chooses not to pour out his wrath upon us. His compassion fails not. And so God, our rock and our redeemer. I think as we go through admitting to God, I'm so weak, I need you so desperately. You are unchanging. I want to praise you for being my rock. I want to praise you for being my redeemer, and then live like you truly appreciate God for that and love him for that, and grow in your faith because of it. That's what Israel experienced with God, and that's what we experience as well. God bless you. I'll look forward to seeing you again.